We've had many surprising and amazing performances by players in the NHL this season. Today we're taking a look at the top 10 players who I think have surprised us and exceeded expectations the most. And that's coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, today we're looking at some players who have surprised us and exceeded expectations by a substantial amount so far during this really fun NHL season. Looking around the NHL, there's lots of players that fell into this category. Some have surprised more than others in my opinion. So just to keep in mind, this list is not in any particular order. These are just the 10 players that have surprised me the most and have really exceeded what I thought they would accomplish this coming season. Now, there are a few superstars in the NHL having excellent campaigns that might have surprised you. For example, like Leon Draisaitl's on pace to win the Art Ross Trophy. He's not on this list as a quick disclaimer because it's not really all that surprising to me. He had a 50-goal season, 100-plus points last year, so clearly a player like that is not really surprising that he's taken it up another notch here yet again. So let's dive into the top 10 players I think that have surprised me the most so far this year. First up, we have Calgary Flames forward Andrew Mangiapane, who's 23 years old. He's only making $715,000 so far this year in 66 games. He's put up 17 goals and 30 points in his first full NHL season. Now, he's dabbled in the NHL up and down over the last couple of years, getting a small taste of NHL hockey. Like I said, this is his first full year. He's in a bargain contract, and he's really been a major contributor for the Flames in their secondary scoring this year. Certainly been a big part of their team's success, and if they're going to have any chance to do well in the playoffs, they're going to need guys like him to continue to put up those types of numbers. But he's certainly carved out a nice spot on the Flames roster for himself with this breakout performance. Clearly, he's going to be getting himself a nice raise. He is a pending restricted free agent at the end of the year, and like I said, I'm sure he'll be getting a nice bump up in pay from the Calgary Flames. Now, sticking in Western Canada, next up on our list is JT Miller of the Vancouver Canucks, who's having a tremendous breakout year. Of course, Miller's been around the NHL for some time. He's played with the New York Rangers and Tampa Bay Lightning prior to joining the Canucks this past offseason. Of course, the Vancouver Canucks acquired him for a first-round pick. I know many people, myself included, were a little skeptical of the price that they paid to acquire this player, but clearly it's paying off in dividends here. He's put up tremendous numbers for them. He's providing good leadership as well, and right now certainly appears as though that pick is more than worth it. If the Vancouver Canucks do slip and miss the playoffs, that first round pick does have the option to be bumped to the following year in 2021 as well, so I guess that's also another bonus. But Miller, even though he's had some pretty productive years in the NHL before, has really taken things up a notch here. So far this year, he has 26 goals and 43 assists for 69 points, which is well above and on pace to break career records. He's making $5.25 million for 3 more years. Certainly, Miller's making Jim Benning look quite smart this acquisition. I know we've seen him have a positive impact on other players around him, like Jake Virtanen is a good example as well. Good leader and really leading the Canucks in a lot of offensive categories this season. So far looks like a tremendous pickup by the Canucks. Next up, we've got Connor Garland of the Arizona Coyotes. Yes, Connor Garland is leading the team in goals with 22. He also has 39 points. All that in 67 games played. Now, Garland had a bit of a revelation last year and played well for them, scoring more goals than was expected, but he's really taken it up exceptionally another notch here yet again on a team that really struggles offensively and really relies on goaltending and strong defensive play to have a chance to win on most nights. Connor Garland's leading the team with 22 goals on a team that features other top well-known offensive stars like Taylor Hall and Phil Kessel. Yes, Garland has more goals than both of these guys, which is really, really difficult to believe. I'm not sure why these other two stars have struggled to put up better numbers than what they have in the desert, but clearly, Garland's been an exceptional piece of their success this season. Like I said, along with goaltender like Darcy Kuemper and some stronger defensive play, which is why the Coyotes are in the playoff hunt. And I guess we'll see what Garland can do to help them secure a playoff spot. Right now they're battling for a wild card, and by no means are they guaranteed a spot. They need to continue winning games here down the stretch and break their stretch of not having playoff hockey in Arizona over the last number of years. Next up, we have Anthony Duclair of the Ottawa Senators, who's having a tremendous season. He did have a bit of a cold streak, which was recently snapped last night as he finally scored because he did have a stretch with no goals, but he had a tremendous first half of the season and right now has 23 goals and 38 points on the season. Was an all-star representing the Senators at the All-Star game, and Anthony Duclair, who last year was acquired by the Senators from the Blue Jackets in the deal that sent Ryan Dzingel to Columbus at the trade deadline, who John Tortorella said really didn't understand and really couldn't play hockey. He didn't have very many nice things to say about Duclair. Well, the Duke has proven him wrong this year. Ever since he got to Ottawa, he even had a strong finish last year. In 84 games played now with Ottawa, but from the end of last year in the current season, he now has 31 goals as a Senator. So obviously in an 82-game season, that puts him on pace to be a 30-goal scorer for a bargain contract. He's still young enough that he can really get his career on track here. I'm sure John Tortorella regrets those remarks, and I'm sure that considering Columbus lost to Dzingel 4-0 in free agency, that they probably regret making that trade. But then again, maybe Duclair just wouldn't have worked out with the role in everything that he was given with the Jackets. So I guess we'll see, but he's working on quite nicely as a Senator. Next up, we have Val Nichushkin of the Colorado Avalanche, who's 25 years old, only making $850,000. Of course, he had returned to the NHL with the Dallas Stars last year and had an absolutely terrible offensive output last year with 0 goals on the entire season and only 10 assists for 10 points. Dallas bought him out of the final year of his contract, made him a free agent, and I know I kind of thought maybe his time in the NHL was done. He originally played a few years back after he was first drafted. Then he left the NHL for a number of years and came back. Things did not work out in Dallas, but the Avalanche have given him a chance here, and he's been a tremendous help of the Avalanche, really providing a lot of necessary secondary scoring. So far this year, he's got 12 goals and 26 points, which may not sound like a lot, but when you only had 0 goals and 10 assists the year before, that is a tremendous improvement and puts him on pace for about 35 points. 25-point increase from last year, which is a tremendously much better effort all around. It's going to likely save his NHL career, at least extend it by an extended period of time here. We'll see how he does, but he'll be getting a new contract, I'm sure, and likely remaining with the Avalanche beyond this year. At least I would think, after the nice improvements we've seen here so far. We have Elvis Merzlikins of the Columbus Blue Jackets. Yes, Elvis is in the building. He is having a tremendous year after a shaky start. And start of the year, he didn't look very confident. He certainly had a rough start to the year, but after going down to the minors and having a few games, getting his confidence back, he's come up. Between him and Jonas Korpisalo have kept the Blue Jackets in the playoff hunt, and his numbers so far look pretty fantastic for a first-year goaltender. Of course, the Latvian goalie, who's 25 years old, really was a top prospect goalie many thought would do well, and the Jackets obviously had a lot of confidence in him once they lost Sergei Bobrovsky to unrestricted free agency last summer, but he's put up 2.39 goals against average and a .922 save percentage in 32 games played. That .922 save percentage is a decent amount above the league average as well. So clearly Elvis has given the Jackets a chance to win when he's played. He's dealt with a little bit of injuries this year as well, but he's been a nice revelation for the Blue Jackets, and between him and Korpisalo have certainly softened the blow to losing their longtime all-star goaltender in Sergei Bobrovsky, and they're doing it at a fraction of the price. We'll see how much of a raise Elvis will get here in the future, but clearly if he keeps this up, he will be getting paid in due time. Next up, we have Kevin Fiala of the Minnesota Wild. Now, Fiala's still quite young, even though he's been around the NHL for some time. Of course, he got started with Nashville and was involved in one of those puzzling Paul Fenton trades when he was still the GM of the Minnesota Wild. That Fiala for Granlund trade seemed a little bit odd at the time, but Fiala's really coming into his own. Took him a while to adjust to Minnesota and how they play and fitting into their systems and everything, but he now has 21 goals and 31 assists on 52 points in 62 games, making $3 million a year. That is quite a bargain contract, and Fiala's really improved his game. Even another teammate of his, like a Ryan Donato, for example, who was acquired in another deadline deal last year, took his time, but he's starting to fit in there as well. Some of these younger players are starting to show much stronger play from Minnesota. I mean, Fiala, the Swiss-born player, came into the NHL with a lot of potential, kind of got off things to a good start, and then kind of derailed. Had a little bit of that sophomore slump that you often see with younger NHL players, and then kind of fell out of favor in Nashville. They thought they could make an upgrade, get a little bit more experience in a player like Garland, and now Fiala is really starting to blossom in Minnesota. So right now he's looking like a bit of a contract bargain, and certainly a nice surprise for the Wild in a somewhat disappointing, frustrating year for the team. Next up, we have Bryan Rust of the Pittsburgh Penguins. Now, Bryan Rust has been a solid player for the Penguins for some time, but he's well on pace to set much higher career standards in the current NHL season, which is certainly coming at a great time considering the Penguins have had their fair share of adversity this year with a lot of injuries, including top winger and former 40 goal scorer Jake Guentzel being out for the season and missing a substantial period of time this year. Now, before this season, Bryan Rust had a career high of 18 goals and 38 points, which is pretty decent for the role he's been given there with the Penguins. But right now, already without the season even being over, he has 27 goals and 27 assists for 54 points, and he has missed some time as well, so he's only played 52 games. He's at over a point per game total right now. If he hadn't been hurt earlier in the year, he'd be on pace for over 82 points. And likely close to 40 goals, which, really is quite an amazing feat. Now, hard to say where Russ will finish between now and the end of the year. Looks like he'll have a shot to hit 30 goals for sure, maybe 35. And like I said, if he hadn't been hurt, he just might have had a crack at 40. And really, I wouldn't even completely rule out. He tends to be a streaky scorer. We see him sometimes score 2 or 3 goals at a time. So we'll see how high he can go. He still has a long ways to go here. Not a ton of time left in the year. But either way, regardless of where he finishes, he's been a nice revelation, a nice surprise for the Penguins, and another great example of a player stepping up and really elevating his role when the team faces adversity so that they're still performing at a good level here. Next up, we have Dominic Kubala of the Chicago Blackhawks, who's having a tremendous rookie year, first year in the NHL, originally drafted by the LA Kings back in 2013, but he never signed, never came over to North America, played over in Europe, and I'm sure right now with the way he's playing that the LA Kings sure wish they would have been able to get him under contract and to get him a part of their organization. He's on a 1-year deal, $925,000, not quite to the level that we saw Panarin play when he first came over with the Hawks, but yet another great find, a player they were able to sign as a free agent from outside of North America, which they've had a lot of success with. And Kubala now has 29 goals and 16 assists for 45 points. Certainly in the conversation when you talk about Rookie of the Year, obviously guys like Quinn Hughes and Cale Makar are kind of dominating that conversation. But to a degree, Kubala really should be mentioned in there as well. He's had a tremendous year, and like I said, even though he hasn't set Panarin-like numbers, the fact that he's scoring the way he is, he's going to need a big raise, which could cause issues for the Hawks due to their salary cap situation. They still have a lot of veterans on big-time deals, so depending on what we get for an increase this year into next for the salary cap could prove difficult and challenging times for Chicago, and they might be forced to trade either this player or another guy in order to keep him in the mix. I'm sure that they've learned from the past and would probably rather move a veteran contract out and pay this guy to be a part of their future. Next up, we have Zach Hyman of the Toronto Maple Leafs. Now, Hyman's been a pretty solid player for the Leafs for some time and unfortunately missed the start of this season due to off-season surgery. He wasn't quite ready to return, missed the first number of games to start the year, but since he's come back, I thought maybe he might start slow, might have a bit of rust where he missed training camp, but he has done anything but. Zach Hyman has been a tremendous player and a big-time contributor, not only in the categories that we're used to seeing from him, but on the scoreboard as well. Zach Hyman already has 21 goals and 16 assists for 37 points in 49 games. So it would put him on pace for well over 60 points, probably about 62, 63 points is what that would convert to on an 82-game season. And his previous career high was only 41. So that's over a 20-point gain for a player of this magnitude. Has been known, for being a hardworking player, a guy who can go dig in the corners and get the puck to the more offensive guys. He's played a lot with Matthews and Tavares in the last few years and is a key part of their offensive game, but he doesn't often get rewarded point-wise. But this year he's having a much more successful offensive season, and after recovering from surgery and missing training camp, this is even that much more of a big surprise. I mean, Zach Hyman is a well-respected player except for his hard work, but he's getting rewarded in other ways. And at this point, if that continues, the Leafs are already challenged with salary cap issues when it comes time for his new contract. that could prove another challenging time to keep him in the fold. But he's from the area. I'm sure he'd love to remain a Leaf for life, but you just never know what opportunities are going to be out there for contracts and what they're going to be able to afford to keep him in the mix. But he's had a tremendously surprising NHL season, in my opinion. So those are my top 10 surprising players for this current NHL season. I'd love to know what your thoughts are and who surprised you the most and who do you think has improved the most so far this year. I'd love to see the NHL come out with a most improved award for a player who's improved more than anybody else year over year. It would certainly create another great way to reward players and make some interesting debates on who deserves it the most. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments and we can continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. Thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.